Thank you, Ms. Jackson-Lee. I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. Ms. Mose, again, thank you for coming in and sharing your son's story and his life with us, and bringing your father with you as well. I just want to make sure that everyone knows, I want to make clear the individual who murdered your son was, if I understood you right, was on probation and had been on probation for more than 10 years. Is that fair to say?
My understanding was that her probation had been revoked and she was in violation as of 2012. I'm sorry, not revoked, but in violation of, and she was out on the street.
I see. And say, it's a similar situation with the getaway driver. The
getaway driver had been incarcerated for a home invasion robbery and was released during COVID in the California's attempt to reduce inmates.
All right. Well, thank you. And you had described it correctly. It was a system failure. There was a law on the books. She was not to be a possessor. Somehow she had a gun, and she used it violently. I mean, that's a system failure, in my opinion. And we hope that we can learn and go forward and change the system where we need to make changes. Thank you for sharing that. I want to get to something that you testified to, Attorney General Kobach, and it's right on my experience with other things, and that is you talked about the threshold. For instance, the U.S. Attorney saying if it's an interstate transport of thefts, stolen goods, it's $250,000. In Arizona, the U.S. Attorney has basically said they're not going to charge, for instance, mules carrying pot unless they're carrying several hundred pounds in the desert, and they actually still have it on their person when they're apprehended. How does the raising of those thresholds impede the actual enforcement of our law?
It certainly does, and it's amazing. I think one of the things that has surprised me about all this is how savvy and how quickly informed the organized retail crime networks are. They learn very quickly where the thresholds are. Now, some of them are statutory thresholds as to where the felony level is, but they will learn what they can get away with. And in an interstate case, that's where the feds could come in and help. As I mentioned, there's a lack of prosecutorial resources generally, and if we can get the feds involved in a lower level, that would greatly increase our resources. And even looking within the state, like in Kansas, where we're looking where we can help, the local prosecutors, they have a huge pile of cases and a lack of resources to address those cases, and they may not recognize, and this is where Ms. Lee's question is particularly important. They may not have enough information to recognize that the 2 thefts at this Home Depot were committed by the same network that in the neighboring county did 5 thefts at a Lowe's and a Walmart, et cetera. And so by having this information sharing, which we're doing in Kansas through the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, we can put 2 and 2 together, connect the dots, and realize that this isn't just a theft of $900 at one store. It's part of a much larger network that's stolen $200,000. And that gets the attention not only of local prosecuting attorneys, but certainly that's where our state resources come into play as well.
So I am intrigued by the notion that there are different levels. I agree with that, having been in the judicial branch, actually I prosecuted some shoplift cases. They were never, we rarely saw an organization, we saw small single one-offs. But now we see these organizations. I would venture to say that not every booster is actually necessarily a drug addict. They're engaged, some of them are engaged in criminal conduct. I wanted your opinion on that, Mr. Milhiser.
Well, I mean, I guess to follow what Ms. Jackson-Lee said, when we talk about whether it's somebody that's homeless, there's all kinds of issues that these individuals that are arrested have. Homeless, substance abuse. When we let them out of jail or prison, we need to, as a society, and as a good prosecutor does, put them in the best position not to reoffend, right? We want to reduce recidivism.
And what is a recidivism rate?
Right. Oh, it's incredibly high. I mean, I think we would all say that it's more than half. They get out and they reoffend, especially if they go back to that same environment they were in. I mean, they're going to reoffend. So what do we have to do? We have to look and say employment, housing, substance abuse, mental health treatment. Those 4 things. Look at that and what can we do? And that's where we talk about collaboration. It's not just law enforcement. It is other government services. It's not-for-profits. It's all those individuals in a community that can help when these individuals get out to keep them crime-free.
Well, thank you. I again thank the witnesses. My time has expired. I appreciate every member of the committee being here and participating. And again, this is a real serious issue that needs, in my opinion, continued elevation of notoriety so people will respond, particularly at the state and local levels. And the federal level, we have the things we should be doing, but we certainly want to encourage our state and local levels whose resources are stretched thin to actually enforce the law and really help out here. But thanks again for being here. With that, we are adjourned.